Bug Fables is a turn-based RPG with action commands, field moves, and a badge system. That is to say, it's a Mario RPG. Developed by Panamanian team Moonsprout, you'll follow Kabbu the Scarab Beetle, Leaf the Moth, and V the Bee as they form the Adventurers Guild Team Snakemouth in order to cast off the shackles of full-time mediocrity and save the freaking world. If the name didn't clue you in, every character in the game is some kind of insect. I'm a pretty big enemophobe, but the designs are all abstract and cute enough that it's not really an issue. The art style in general is really cute. There's a $10 art book in the game's store page that includes a lot of dev notes and full sprite sheets for each protagonist. It's a great little companion piece if you really like the game, especially its art style. I liked it more when it came out, but now that everyone and their fucking mom is making Paper Mario inspired turn-based RPGs with action commands, all with the same signposted sprites in a 3D world, it looks a lot more generic now. And no, I'm not calling them paper-likes. Bug Fable's sentient insect gimmick is a great way to maintain a distinct identity even among a market that's gotten more saturated over time. Besides the more generic insects that form the game's major kingdoms, ants, bees, wasps, almost every NPC is a unique species of insect. Enemies go beyond that. Many are insects, but others are like weird acorns or rocks or some shit, and during the endgame they get real fucked up. But I don't want to spoil that. I don't mean to belittle Bug Fables by comparing it to Paper Mario. It's a game that stands up on its own merits. I would recommend it to people even completely divorced from any Mario RPG. Bug Fables invites these comparisons because it's so unabashedly informed by Paper Mario both aesthetically and mechanically. It uses Paper Mario as a foundation to build its own game with its own world of mechanics, characters, and narrative. This is a good thing. The pattern Bug Fables follows is a founding principle of indie games as a concept. A niche has been created by a company that no longer wants to fill it, and small independent teams are able to make a name for themselves by making a game that they want to play. And I want to play it too. I'm not super interested in the Warring Kingdom save the world type plot Bug Fables tries to tell. I'm an American. I don't care about royalty. This isn't really related, but this is my biggest problem with Dragon Quest. There are too many benevolent monarchs. It simply strains the suspension of disbelief. I don't begrudge Bug Fables for its story. It's a fantasy RPG about sentient insects. There's gonna be kingdoms. There's a lot of backstory to Bugaria, which informs a lot of conversations throughout the game, and there are a bunch of lore books you can check out at the library if you're into that kind of shit. What I really like, however, is the character writing on display in the protagonists. I love how Kabbu is halfway between a Boy Scout and a Red Ranger. He's a real big sweetheart, his appropriately dramatic backstory makes him even more endearing, and he's the perfect emotional core for Team Snakemouth. I'm not a huge fan of rogues with a heart of gold. She's a little racist against bees, but V's personal arc was sweet enough that she ended up growing on me. Leaf is the opposite. I like them as a character. Their put upon, above it all personality is pretty funny, but I thought their arc had a lot of potential and I was kinda disappointed by how it ended up going. No spoilers though. I really love all three of these characters, and they each have their own histories in the world that affects their interactions with it. The party has unique conversations for every screen and every character in the game, sometimes multiple. Each has a different title for every single enemy that showcases a bit of their personality. The development of their relationships is what kept me coming back as much as, if not more than the gameplay. The field moves are all fine. None of them are extraordinary, but they can make for some interesting puzzles. Kabbu can smash and move objects with his horn, both just by swinging it around with a big dash tackle, or he can dig to bypass barriers and excavate items. The charge is my favorite, simply because it's a huge time saver to hold you over until you unlock all the fast travel points. Leaf can freeze enemies and objects to use as platforms and waits for puzzles, and V's Boomerang spins things. V's Boomerang is definitely the most simple, the hardest to use, and it doesn't pair with any other abilities like Leaf's ice cubes getting knocked around by Kabbu's horn. Later on, V can carry Kabbu over gaps, while Leaf rides a big chunk of ice, and Leaf develops the ability to create platforms in water, but I don't really like this one. There's a lot of room for added complexity. I wouldn't want too much depth in this mechanic that's mostly used for downtime and exploration between fights, but a couple more instances of Team Snakemouth working to solve puzzles together that they couldn't alone would be a great way of showcasing their developing bond, which is exactly why they do just that in the battles, baby. Every character has their own moveset that lends itself to different strategies. Kabbu's horn will pierce enemy armor, and Leaf's ice spells do bonus damage to plant-based enemies. V doesn't get to do bonus damage, but her Boomerang is the only one that can hit flying enemies. In the first area, a flying and fungus-type Enemoid introduces the idea of proper turn management for maximum damage output. By keeping in mind turn order and enemy weaknesses, you'll do a fuck ton more damage than you would otherwise. The front party member in battle takes more aggro, but in return does an additional point of damage. Due to how math works, it generally doesn't make much of a difference who's in front unless you use turn relay a ton and pump one party member full of damage boosts, which is how I played my first playthrough, but then I couldn't beat the super boss, so maybe you shouldn't take my advice. I will not apologize for mathematics in my video. I'll get my major combat gripe out of the way. Bug Fable's action commands aren't really that interesting. It's hard to improve on TTYD's action commands, but Bug Fables doesn't even reach those heights. They're all stuff you've seen before. Press A at the right time, hold the stick until the light flashes, press the button when you see it. It's not game ruining, but with how well Bug Fables improves on Paper Mario's mechanics and other aspects, it is a little disappointing. My absolute favorite improvement is the visual feedback you get for block timings. When you press the block button, your character enters a block state with a unique visual and will hold it until they stop blocking. This is a basic action game mechanic, but in Paper Mario you don't get any visual feedback unless you've already succeeded at a block. Frankly, it's not a huge change, but it's one I appreciate immensely as an action game pervert. Bug Fables is pretty definitively a game meant to be played by kids, but it's actually pretty damn hard, especially with the hard mode that rewards you with unique badges for fighting bosses. I've played Paper Mario 64 and Thousand Year Door a few times, and this game still kinda kicked my ass. You can't just power rush and close call your way through, bozo. You need to think about the roles of your party members and how to best utilize their abilities. For example, Vi has the only healing skill and the weakest base attack because she doesn't get any bonus damage. So by giving her the strong start badge, which gives her an extra turn during round 1 but makes her deal much less damage after each of those turns, I can have her turn relay to Leaf or Kabu to get a second turn out of one of them, avoiding the badge's drawback. Kabu is the tank, he has the highest base health and he has the only taunt, so by giving him the favorite one badge, which buffs Vi and Leaf's attack when he gets hit, and a couple defense boosts, I can have him take all the party's damage while Vi and Leaf dish it back out even harder. Or you can give a character a pseudo rage mode where they'll deal more damage and take less damage while they're poisoned. There's plenty of room for customization here, but I know Moonsprout can do even better in the next game. Whatever it is. They most have been quiet since the game's release besides retweeting fan art and selling a bunch of character plushes. Missed my chance for the Kabu plush. I normally don't like to make this point. I don't think it's particularly useful criticism, at least for indie games. But if you're the type of freak who thinks I need to get my money's worth out of a video game, I need to be entertained for X hours per dollar, and I haven't convinced you yet, this is for you. I beat Bug Fables, I did all the side quests, I reached max level, I didn't beat the super bosses, and for that one playthrough I put over 50 hours in this game for a price of $20. This is a full fucking fantasy RPG adventure. It's longer than some Final Fantasies. If it doesn't sound fully featured, keep in mind there are plenty of things I'm not spoiling simply because I don't want to replace the act of playing the game. It's obvious a lot of effort went into this game, especially for such a small team. If that doesn't do it for you, frankly, I don't know what to tell you. This is a dope game made by a small team that's a successful spiritual successor to one of those games everyone begs for a sequel to. This isn't a funny meme, we have the Paper Mario at home, huh? Deal. This is a whole-ass, good-ass game made by passionate people, and I think you should pay full price for it.